Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Heartland Farm, the fifth episode of The Toy and the Real McCoy. Thanks for joining us, and once again, we ask if you enjoy these tractor videos, The Toy and the Real McCoy, please share them if you would. We're going to be awarding, pulling everybody's name into a hat here who shares the video. We'll be awarding you a hat and a t-shirt from the dealership, which we'll be sending to you. So we're throwing everybody's name in a hat that does the sharing. And so just keep it interesting and get more people involved. Today we're going to do a very interesting tractor. We're going to talk about the John Deere BO Lindemann crawler tractor. You can see I have the toy right here. This one is a spec cast made toy. It's a company out of Dyersville, Iowa. But I have a very special one over at the house that I didn't bring out today that I bought in 1987 at the Founders Day celebration out in Sharon Springs. James McFadden was having an auction there that day, and it's the first time I met James. We've become very, very good friends ever since. And I bought a BO Lindemann crawler toy from him that turns out was made by the legendary Gilson Rickey. I posted some stuff about Gilson earlier in the week. He passed away at 90 about 3 years ago, and he was a gifted metal worker that made some amazing sand cast toys. Gilson made his own castings and was just an amazing, he called himself a metal nut, and that he was. He did some amazing stuff with the craft of modeler's brass and casting these tractors. And today they're highly collectible, highly valuable because Gilson's gone, there'll be no more. But I brought this one over from the toy room just now. This is just a shelf model. These were kind of a more mass-produced BO Lindemann, but you look at the detail on it. It's a pretty amazing toy. And when we look at the real tractor here in a few minutes, you'll see just how accurate it is. If you see the shield here over the fuel cap and the shield over the other fuel cap right here on this tractor, this replicates the John Deere BO tractor. Now, a little bit about the John Deere B tractor series. They made, it was a long-running tractor. They made them from 1935 till 1952 when it was replaced by the John Deere 50. The B series tractor was made in a regular B tricycle front row crop tractor. It was made in a regular, which was a standard tread wide front end tractor. It was made in a BW, which was a wide tractor for certain vegetable crops. And it was made in a BI, which was industrial, painted yellow for roadside mowing and the like. And the one we're going to focus on today was a takeoff of the BO, which was an orchard tractor, and hence that's why we have all these easings on it, and the tractor's very low to prevent the tractor from getting caught in branches in an orchard. So there was a gentleman named Jesse Lindeman. He was one of four boys that were off a farm in Iowa, and he came back from World War I and really didn't have much interest in sticking around Iowa and being a farmer, so he made his way to the state of Washington and got involved, after a matter of fact, in a machinery business out there where they sold Holt crawler tractors. You may know that Holt and Best were two crawler tractor manufacturers that formed up in time and became a company you may have heard of called the Caterpillar Tractor Company. Well, anyways, Jesse Lindeman coerced his brothers to leave Iowa and go out there and join him in a business out there, and they specialized in tractors for the orchards in Washington and Oregon, and became a John Deere dealer after having a short stint as a Cletrac dealer. They had some quality issues with the Cletracs and needed a more reliable supplier, so they turned to John Deere and started selling John Deere tractors. But they noticed with the hillside wheat farms in Washington State and also the need for crawler tractors in the hillside orchards in Washington and also Oregon, that they had to come up with something that would work in those conditions, something that was lower and safer. And they started buying some John Deere B regular tractors, the wide fronts, on a skid with no tires, and bringing them out to Yakima, Washington, where they converted them into crawler tractors. They did about 2 dozen of the BR tractors, and they did a few John Deere GP orchards as well. But where they really found their acclaim was in the BOB orchard tractor, and they bought 1,645 of these mounted on just sitting on a skid with no tires, no wheels, and no final drives, had them shipped by rail car out to Yakima, Washington, and there they converted them and put their own final drives on them with steering clutches and brakes so that they could use lever steering to stop one track and steer the tractors, as all crawler tractors worked in that time. Well, they did such a great job with these BR tractors that kind of caught the interest of a fellow back in Moline at the John Deere headquarters. His name is Charles Deere Wyman. And Charles Deere Wyman is the great-grandson of the founder of John Deere. And Charles Deere Wyman had Mr. Lindeman come out and demonstrate a Lindeman crawler out in Moline. And so Jesse Lindeman took the crawler out into a wet field, and he took it out in some really soggy ground, and he spun it right around and came back, and it was a torrential downpour. And Charles Deere Wyman was pretty interested. He said to Jesse Lindeman, he says, "Come on back to my office." So they took their wet boots off, put their feet up on a stool. I believe they might have enjoyed a cocktail, and they talked about the tractor business. One thing led to another, and in 1947, Charles Deere Wyman arranged for John Deere Company to purchase the Lindeman tractor company out of Yakima, Washington, and entice Mr. Lindeman to come to Moline and work on special projects for a while. What really happened was that Charles Deere Wyman knew as the soldiers were coming back from World War II, there was going to be a housing boom. And he could see that not only were these little agricultural crawlers great for the hillside orchards, but if they were fitted with a small bulldozer blade, would certainly be good in the growing home building business for single family homes as the boys were coming home from the war and establishing new homes, and suburbia as it was starting in the United States. So John Deere bought some land in Dubuque, Iowa. They built a brand new facility. They're about 700 and some acres, but the complex is now over 1,500 acres on the west side of the Mississippi River. And a beautiful factory it is. I've been there a number of times. And they started out building crawler tractors. Well, the B tractor was being replaced by the John Deere M. The M tractor was being built right there in Dubuque. So in 1947, they started building a new tractor to replace the BO, and they put tracks on it, and that became the MC, the M crawler, which was a tractor that really took off in popularity and went on to have several iterations. It became the 40, then the 420, then the 430, which we'll focus on another time. In 1958, John Deere went into the industrial tractor business where they actually had an industrial division, and it started right there in that Dubuque factory. They painted crawler tractors yellow, and they went after the contractors market. I think we all know where that went today, because John Deere is certainly a worldwide leader in utility and in large crawler tractor production, all made right there in that same factory in Dubuque, Iowa. I guess this is as good a time as any to make note of a very notable anniversary of a very special person. The man whose name is on the side of that tractor, John Deere himself, would be 218 years old tomorrow if he were still alive. He was born 43 miles from here in Rutland, Vermont. And he interned up in Middlebury College and did a little learning up there and became a blacksmith. But the economy in Vermont got pretty tough, and a bunch of Vermonters went out to Illinois to seek their fortune. John Deere went along with them, and it was there that he invented the steel self-scouring plow to replace the cast iron plows that the farmers were using out there. So tomorrow would be John Deere's birthday, and it's a notable anniversary to remark about, especially when we're doing this special on the BO Lindemann the day before John Deere's birthday. Charles Deere Wyman went on to have a daughter, Patricia Deere Wyman, and his daughter married a man named William Hewitt. He went on to become the chairman of the board of John Deere from 1955 to 1982. He's the man that took John Deere out of the two-cylinder tractor era, put him into the 4- and 6-cylinder tractor era. He's also the man that spearheaded the construction of the new corporate headquarters in Moline, Illinois. And when I was in the Future Farmers of America in 1981, I had the amazing opportunity to have my picture taken with him at the FFA convention in Kansas City, Missouri, something that I'll never forget. Just wished I could remember where I put the picture. Anyway, enough about the toy, enough about the man whose name is on the tractor. Well, let's look at our real BO Lindemann tractor right here. There were 1,645 of these tractors shipped in rail cars out to Yakima, Washington for the Lindeman brothers to convert them over to crawler tractors. This is a crawler tread of their own design, a final drive of their own design. They had their own foundry where they cast the final drive housings to make these steerable rear ends on these B orchard tractors. Tractor 16.46 built horsepower. It's considered a two-plow tractor as long as they were small. We'll call them 10-inch plows. It's a 3-speed transmission with a high and low range. This tractor has 2 fuel caps because it has gasoline and distillate fuel. Distillate was a very low cost alternative. It was a byproduct from the production of gasoline, and it was nearly given away in the day. So in the 1930s and 40s, there was a lot of multi-fuel tractors that would run on distillate because it was pennies on the gallon to buy. Today, the nearest thing we can come to distillate is kerosene, which is about as pure a fuel as you're going to buy. And we were going to start this tractor up and show you how well it ran, except she's a cantankerous old gal, and on a 75-degree day, she gives you a fit trying to get her started. I think I got a little bit of debris in the carburetor on it. It starts on gas, and we switch it over to distillate. So as a laugh, we turned the heat on in the barn here today, and before we started filming, I said to Dave, why don't you yank the flywheel and see what she does? And sure enough, she started right up, ran as long as it's ever run without quitting, and then when it shut off, we went to restart it, and no chance. So we'll post the clip of it running for a few minutes. It's got some debris in the carburetor we have to deal with. It's flywheel start. This tractor has a real hot magneto, so it usually fires right up on one crank, but you have finger holds inside the flywheel here. You wrap your fingers in there. You don't have any loose fitting clothing. You give her get against the compression stroke, turn the two decompression valves out, give her a spin, she fires. If it stays running, you take the choke off, go around, shut the decompression valves off, and there you go. You let her warm up for a few minutes and you go to work. This tractor, of course, doesn't have a 3-point hitch, has some shields to keep your feet out of the tracks, has no shield to keep your feet out of the power takeoff, which is simply amazing by today's standards that you wouldn't have something there. It's got a 540 PTO, which had become standard of the industry by that time. Rear slung seat, very low to the ground, tractor that really did a lot of work. Highly collectible today, just an awesome, awesome little tractor. So there's our BO Lindemann. Maybe one day when it's a little warmer, we'll have our carburetor cleaned out. We'll take her out and run her around the farm here a little bit, maybe have another little show on it, but it's a real awesome piece of history, one of 1,645 made. They made them from 1936 to 1947, and this one happens to be a 45, so very close to the end of the run before they switched over to the Model M crawler, or the MC as it's known. The John Deere factory in Dubuque goes to this day. Its main runway is over a mile long, and it's an amazing factory. I've had many, many tours there. I could go again today and learn something more. I take great pride in going through that factory and knowing that we sell the quality products that are built there. So from here, we have a 1945 BO Lindemann, and over here, this was the smallest crawler tractor in the John Deere line at that time, and over here, we have a 2022 450K, and this is now the smallest tractor in the John Deere crawler line. Seems a little foolish to have something this large for a small crawler these days, but the old 350 dozers and the 400Gs that we had for a number of years, they're gone, and now people go with something like this, and if they want something a little smaller, they go with a compact track loader, formerly known as a skid steer on tracks. So once again, if you'd be good enough to share this, we enjoy bringing you the toy and the real McCoy. We aren't sure what we're going to do next week, but we may stay on this crawler business and do a John Deere 430, and we may switch over to trucks. We'll wait to hear what your comments are. If you'd like to see some trucks, we got a few of them we could show you as well. Thanks again. Thanks for spending your time with us. Say a prayer for all the people that you know that have undergone sickness and tragedy lately. There was a world full of bad news this morning in our community, and our hats are off to all the people that have had to help, and certainly those that have suffered the losses today and also last night. So sorry to always bring it down to something sad, but the reality of this world is we can't pretend that these things don't go on. God bless you all. Thanks again for spending your time with us. Have a great and safe week.